So welcome, Jeffrey, or should I say Jeff? Welcome.
I'm not too fussed either way.
Well,
We
it's
focus
great.
on too many little things in this life these days rather than focusing on just getting it done.
Oh, 100%. Actually, you know what we're thinking about in our house, New Year's Eve, not New Year's Eve resolution, because I don't believe in that shit, but kind of I said to my partner, what do you want to do differently this year? Because what are we doing that we're not doing, or what are we not doing where, we should be doing, or what do we feel like? What would make us happier? And we both said we need to simplify. We need to just cut out some of the crap, and
Absolutely. We
just,
fluff our lives up and we say we don't have time. Everyone, I don't have time. And
yeah.
as soon as someone says that to me, if they are a coaching client, they are a corporate client, say, show me your diary. And they're billion dollar, million dollar CEOs. So we're looking at their diaries and saying, you have time here, you have time here. And could somebody else delegate to elevate, do something of that nature and look after it? You don't need to be looking after that. And that
Yeah.
allows them to focus on the business, not be in the business.
Yeah.
And for us as a business to be able to teach people that, sometimes they get caught up bluffing their days up and
Yeah.
sitting in 20 meetings in a row that just don't need to be in. And you
Yeah.
can see train somebody, teach somebody to be that person for you, speak your language while you focus on the big stuff and then being able to grow that business or direct that ship in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I work with a lot of people they're always stressed because back to back, back to back. I remember last year someone said to me, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and her and I had a Zoom catch up. She said, I haven't been to the toilet since 8 o'clock this morning. And I said, then get
Crazy.
off now, go and do that, make yourself a cuppa and come back, and I'll just sit here and wait for you. Just go make a space for God's sake. But
How dare you tell her to be human? And that's literally what happens, right? We forget to
yeah,
be human, man. We just can't even go to the toilet or have a lunch break.
yeah,
And the human body needs fuel.
yeah, I
Period.
know.
You try and run a marathon without some fuel in your body and find out what happens. And I think that's what tends to happen in society these days. We're too busy means not only in the workplace, it becomes a part of you. And a part of you means that you're on your phone. Oh, yep, sweet. I'm going to text. Oh, I just got to do some work, honey. And we forget about our families and then
Yeah,
we've become distant from our families or we're not even present when we talk about presents at Christmas.
yeah,
Give your presence as the
yeah,
greatest gift every single day to the greatest thing we ever got, life and the time of life
yeah.
that you share with those loved ones or those spaces that you step into. And when you do that, the only thing you're going to do is be more present,
Yeah.
and that presence is highly regarded and felt and loved and cared for and valued and mattered by those that actually matter. So
Yep.
um, do something different in 2025, like you said, that you're not currently doing. That's the biggest tip and a bit of advice that I can give anybody.
Yep.
Most people don't tend to do that because they want to feel that they are valued in a space. So therefore, I'm going to give up all my time and not even go to the toilet, not eat, to show you that I'm the person that should be in the next time that role comes up, I'm that person.
Yep.
Slow it down and speed it up by actually contributing at a high level where huge value of your content or your output or
Mm.
your time is shown through the regard of what you then brought to the space. And
Yep.
that means if I was with my partner and I'm sitting and I'm looking in the eyes, I'm listening, I'm feeling, we're generating energy together and vibration, I can guarantee she'll feel magical. And I'm saying the right things. I'm not looking at the girl walking by. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm present in that moment. How good's the food and the conversation? And
Yep.
we've lost that as we've
Yeah.
got into these deeper years. And I think it's important that people really reconnect with themselves and disconnect with everybody else.
Oh, I agree. And you know what? Just in you saying that, do you know what the best thing is? We just were talking last night, and I said, "This is the best thing we've ever bought," and it's our barbecue. Do you know? And
Love that.
because we've been every single night sitting out together, out on the deck, cooking up a barbie, sitting there enjoying it together, and I'm getting brown.
With goosebumps.
Oh,
Goosebumps.
goosebumps! I thought you were saying I'm
Eh,
getting a suntan.
nah, isn't it crazy though that I get goosebumps over that? Because I know what happens out of that. You're sitting together and you're saying,
Yeah.
this is the best. It's funny, I just bought a barbecue yesterday. Not a barbecue. We saw the little cookers the campers use.
Yeah, yeah,
And we
yeah,
tend to travel so much, and we went, you know what, that's a great idea. We'll buy one of those. You can pull it out and cook anywhere. Because
yep,
we're in the middle of nowhere. We could just pull up and say, you know what, we've got some meat. Let's cook it up right here, right now.
yep.
And in the middle of nowhere, we don't need anybody. We're
No,
present together. And
yep.
as you said,
Magical.
magical. So that's a tip for everybody out there. Go grab yourself a Bowie or do something that reconnects you. And people always say, once you get over the honeymoon period, even that, I look at that and I'm like, there is no honeymoon period.
No.
Honeymoon period is every single day. And
Yep,
treat
yep, I
your
agree.
partner
Yep.
and the way that you want to be treated. And that means, you know, it's not just an intimacy thing. How good's this initial period?
Mm,
And I mean this nicely to everybody
yep.
out there. Jump your partner every single day and make them feel that you want them. Why did you want
Mm,
them at the start, but you don't want them anymore? Is it just a lust thing? And if so, maybe that you've got to work on that emotional intelligence of yourself and the awareness of how you operate and what you are seeking external validation from somebody else to make you feel good. So
mm,
therefore you chase the next person, rather
yeah,
than
yeah,
actually be present with the person that
yeah,
gave up their life for you. As a
yeah.
very powerful journey.
And you said something important in there too, is it stop looking for validation in other people. Like just validate yourself, find a way to validate. Yeah. It's not easy though. I say it like it's easy, but it's not. You,
Internal, and everything outside of me is an external, even
yeah,
my kids.
yeah,
But what we'll do is our kids will fix us, our dog will fix us, our car will fix us, that
yeah,
nice
yeah,
holiday will fix us, buy some jewelry, I'll get a tattoo. It all fixes us. It's an external. What
yeah,
is you? That's
yeah,
the internal. Focus on the internal. Like you said, what are we not doing that we'd like to do? Like
yeah,
we'd like to do.
yeah,
Not, oh, the Joneses next door bought a new car.
yeah,
Let's get compete. And we
yeah,
we get in this mode. If you want to compete, compete with yourself. I didn't
yeah,
show up yesterday to the gym. Today is the day I'm going to do it, and I'll do one rep,
yeah,
one push up. And people laugh at me and go, I could do one push up. I go, did you do it yesterday? And they go, no. So do it today. Do it for the next 7 days and
yeah,
see if you can repeat the action. And they're
yeah,
like, one's easy. And I'll go, well, do it and send me the video of you doing the one push up. And they're like, that's easy, all right. And now most people won't get it done because they don't
mm,
have the habit, the discipline, the
yeah,
structure, the time to know even when to do it.
yeah,
Maybe when you turn the juggle and jump down on the ground and do one push up off your knees. If you couldn't do it and you're elderly, stand up against the wall and do a wall push up.
yeah,
There's a way. Find a way to pivot and be agile. But most people will focus on what they can't do. And
mm,
as long as you say you can't, you won't.
yeah,
You
yeah.
are the voice of your own brain, which means what you tell yourself you become.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Oh, 100%. I so agree with narratives. Whatever we tell ourselves, that's exactly what's going to happen. Jeff, you said something earlier about, being human. We're only human, blah, blah, blah. And, humans make mistakes. Humans fuck up. We really do. Like, and anyone who pretends to be
Right.
perfect is a bullshit artist, that's
Absolutely.
no such thing. But let's talk about your humanism because now you're a
Mm.
life coach, a mindset and life coach, and I can hear by the way you're talking, you're bloody gung ho. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on, let's change our life. And I absolutely I love that. However, beforehand, and this is not a however in a bad way, this is really nice because it shows people that humanity, being a human, we do screw up and there is hope. We can change our lives and we can make a difference. But before that, you had spent 20 years in maximum security prisons for armed robbery and things like that. Now, people might listen to this and go, what? What the hell is he?
Where'd that
Really?
come from?
Oh, yeah,
Because
where did that come
technically,
from?
we're a business, leadership, and mindset, well-being business, high performance habits around those. So
Yeah.
people are like, "What the heck did you just say?" I thought this was a business coach. I said, we are a bit ultimately." But 14 years ago, I walked out of those prison walls and never ever looked back. And I'd spent 20 years in and out of custody, growing up with the habits that my environments taught me, and I became a role model of that environment, which meant that what I learned, I passed on. And people would, for me, in that industry, if you want to call it that, I was very well known, very well respected, operated at a very high level. And at some point in time, I had to start asking myself, just like you did the other day, what aren't we doing this year
Mm,
that we did, want to be doing?
mm,
And I started to ask myself, what am I not doing that I'd like to be truly doing? And if it's about making money, the awareness, this is really connecting with yourself. What are you doing this for, Jeff? I started to ask myself as I sit in the cells crying about my kids,
Mm,
and then walk out of the cell the next morning, no tears, chest out, puffed out, and let's go, violent man. And to me, that was just, and we all do, we all put on that mask. Like you said, as humans, whether we go into a corporate space now, we're wearing a suit. I hate wearing this suit. I hate driving in the traffic. We all put on a mask. When you see a kid or a dog, hey,
yeah.
hey, cutie, like, and you get your voice changes. So we all become this different person.
Mm,
And I started to say, is this a person I truly want to be sitting with? Would I sit with this person sitting in this cell? And yeah, when I looked at myself, I deep dived myself, and I advise everybody to do that over a period of time, but build the emotional intelligence and awareness to understand how you are built. Because if you don't do that and you unpack what I call your invisible backpack, and it was a trauma or past abuse or past experience that doesn't, or hasn't made you feel the way that you want to, what's going to happen is you're going to unleash something that you can't deal with. It's like unleashing a,
mm,
a bunch of wild dogs into a yard, and you're standing in that yard and they're going to bite you. And so
mm,
make sure that you understand what you're getting into before you unleash that. Do that around someone, whether it's me or somebody else that you align with. I never tell people to sign up to my coaching program as individual. I get them to say, just do it. Like for
mm,
yourself, you want to start something new, find the coach, the guide, the mentor, the consultant that you align with. It could be me, it could be somebody else, but just do it today.
mm,
Whatever you do, if you're
mm,
watching this, grab it. You send me the receipt of who you signed up with if it's not me. And I'll even help you out with a whole bunch of tips around what we're doing just because we're on this podcast.
mm,
And that's for your subscribers. They can reach out and say, "Hey Jeff, I signed up to Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, anybody else, and I'm cool with that." And I'll say, "Here's some more tips how to unpack your invisible backpack and deal with that."
mm,
Because as long as you don't, what happens? That invisible backpack is a volcano, but based on the past experiences of your life and those feelings in that, and eventually it explodes into behaviors. And whether it's escapism, drinking alcohol, sleeping with people, even sometimes for females. They think, this is how I'm going to deal with my abuse. And then they get a bad name. Now they've stacked on what they've already got and they put that in their invisible backpack as well.
mm,
Learn how to deal with your emotions. And that means you become emotionally intelligent where you can control yourself. Your focus is the vision, purpose, and why to the GPS of your life. And now your A to B of life is intentional and that dash in between. That is when you're born. This is when
mm.
you die. It can be
Yeah.
filled with regret or life. You get to choose that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that dash analogy. That is so true because it really doesn't matter when you go. That doesn't matter. It's what matters what you do. When you were when you were in prison, like because you started off as a young boy in Redfern, and everyone knows, the reputation of Redfern. It's rough, it's tough, it's a hard bloody life for anyone growing up there. And and I saw your video of read a lot about you, saw your video, and it's you were basically escaping domestic violence from your father, and ran away at
Exactly.
12 years old and ended up with well, I presume ended up in gangs and God knows what, that led you to feel validated. Is that what you think happened?
Oh, definitely. Like, obviously, my dad being domestic violence to myself as a kid, or abusive as a kid. The craziest thing, we've got campaigns now that protect women and children. Yet I was one of those kids. So I ran away from home. And because I didn't feel validated by my parents, I sought validation elsewhere. Graffiti was the first sort of pathway. We were hanging around street kids. Graffiti was a huge thing back then. And I become one of Sydney's most well-known graffiti artists. And everyone spoke about me. So I was loved for once.
Mm,
I was
mm,
cared for once. I was valued for once. I mattered to people for once. And that's those four things are what any human wants in a relationship. And
mm,
when you don't get it from those that brought you into this world, it's a really crushing moment. And then you're out on the streets and you're doing your best to survive. Let me ask anybody, you get chased by a madman, a lion, the plane's going down, and I'm sitting there going, "Tell me your goals and what you'd like to achieve out of life." And they're like, "Are you joking? We're about to crash."
mm,
Um, you got to understand if society seeks to understand these kids, they'll understand that lock this little scumbag up. He's stealing cars. Kids trying to be validated. And if we sat with these kids on a farm, and I'm talking women, community members, and so forth, and actually role modeled these kids, hence me being 20 years in and out of custody. Once I was role modeled by people like yourself that would come in, like that, my teacher, Miss March, big shout out to her, Macca, who got me into training. Come on, do push ups. I don't do that bullshit, mate. I'll beat you. Got me because he found a way. I was
Mm,
competitive. I'll show you. And we kept going. And then I felt good after. I said, I'll do it again tomorrow. And these little actions created the reactions that changed my life ultimately in 2010.
mm,
And as long as we judge somebody, well, we must have the solution. Give that gift, that solution to the person, that kid that was abused and wanted the police to step in probably, but never ever saw the police, didn't even know how to contact or didn't want to contact the police on his father, or the woman that's been abused by somebody that doesn't want to go out and be shamed, even though she was the victim of a crime. Let's normalize having the conversation of what's right will always be right and what's wrong will always be wrong, and support that person, not judge that person, not get at that person, that kid. We could have shifted and changed Jeffrey Morgan a long time ago, and he could have been a great contributing member, as he is now, to society, by actually sitting to understand most of these men are broken in custody and they've been through abuse, they've been through trauma. And when you hear their stories, devastating. Their parents, one's in jail, one's taking drugs, they're growing in a socio-economic area where violence and crime is normal.
mm,
Until we shift that person out of the area, we teach and role model them something different. They're always going to be from the area.
mm.
And we can contribute to that, but we choose to pretend it's not it's not my business. A lot of people in general until it becomes your business. And the biggest thing is what happens when someone kicks your door in and home invades you. Now it's your business. Oh, let's get it all jump up and down about crime. Why don't we just create a sound solution behind crime by becoming a part of the solution and role modeling other human beings and being
Mm,
human and
mm,
connecting together at the greatest and highest level. And that to me it's easy. It's a no-brainer.
mm.
But we just don't want to do it. But we want the result that we'll never get as long as we separate them and isolate them. It'll be two totally different versions and people. That's the
Yeah.
reality of that conversation.
We always view it as harder to help people than to ignore it. But I actually think if you think about the stress that it puts on your brain, like and even an unconscious stress, and even right down to a cellular level that what it's damaging, how it's damaging you, is it's so much easier to help people than to be resisting or fighting or judging or it's and we're all human, we all do it, but to remind ourselves that what, it's so much easier just to be bloody kind, so much
Crazy.
easier.
And I think if they did that in custody, it'd be a great thing where they took
Mm,
them on farms. And yes, you're going to have people that run off because they're not built well. But if you took them on farms and you showed them different role modeling, you got communities that came in and sat that have been victims of crime, or and not come in and say, "Oh, you're scum," and you're like,
mm,
tell us about your story. And
mm,
that's how I grew up. I didn't have my father. He died early. My mother was a drug addict. And, my auntie brought me up and she was locked in and out of custody sometimes. So I'd have to live in her house at 12 years of age. People were like, are you joking? And they wouldn't even believe the stories some of these men or men that I was locked up with, but no doubt women's stories that have been abused
mm,
by their fathers, their uncles, their babysitters, right? A lot of damaged people do damaged things and hurt people. And until we understand that hurt and go in and sit with them, and it more, I wouldn't, jails are like you got an abused person who's been abused. Let's say it was a female. We use the female version abused by people that then goes into a justice center that usually they end up abused by the workers within the justice center a lot of times.
mm,
And it goes on. We hear the stories and they feel that they're being validated by a person, so they'll do it. But when they get caught out now, it's all, even more embarrassment to themselves. But imagine like you're just selling your soul and people don't understand. Here's the thing. People say it's not my business, but you're selling your soul as a prisoner of your own mindset in this thing. I call it the scam of life. Each to their own. It's a free world. Working is a great thing and a noble thing, but 9 to 5 jobs, you can definitely shift and change what you do into an online space or working for yourself and earn 10 times the amount of money. And when we are, there is a transition. I see this
Mm,
happening now. A lot of people saying, hey, wait a second. And the lockdowns made us aware, hey, we can actually do something different in
mm,
life. We don't have to be in a 9 to 5 job. Some
yeah.
people are living in caravans, traveling across Australia, loving life, and they've made huge money. But that awareness to how we can contribute to make a better world starts with yourself. When you make yourself a better person, I don't sit there in judgment of anybody. Even the person, there was an incident in Australia here, Bondi, where a bloke went around and stabbed random people in the mall and killed
Yep.
people, unfortunately, and may they rest easy. And um, I talk about this because I want everyone to understand what a shitbag. His mother, I don't know if you saw the interview, his mother was an absolutely beautiful lady. And she said,
Yep.
unfortunately, he just didn't get the treatment. He had it and then he went off it. And,
Yep.
you know, that kid, if we treated him, loved him, bring him into a football team or something of that nature, even if he was serving at the canteen, but he felt a part of the community, would he have done that? I don't think so. And,
Mm,
because he'd managed it for so many years. And as soon as he didn't manage it and the government supported, the support fell off, I'm not saying it's right and I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying we definitely, even his mother said when he was being managed, there was no problem. And, those people wouldn't have lost their lives and us as a community would be safer. And as you said, at a cellular level now, when I walk in a shopping centre, I'm conscious to be walking along a wall. I'm conscious of the
mm,
fire exits. I'm conscious of things I could grab and make sure that if
mm,
someone did something of that nature, I could actually defend my partner who's standing
mm,
next to me or another female or another human
mm,
actually in that shopping center. So, do we want to live in that fear? Is there someone going to jump on this plane and try and take the plane like 9/11? So, yeah, people have that in the back of their mind. Some people don't fly because of that. Oh,
mm,
what happened? What would happen if I was on a plane? And so that's at a cellular level. You're built and
mm.
your vibrations going, oh, I'm anxious. And if you're anxious already before you've even started your day, how can you actually start your day? It just
Yeah.
doesn't start.
No.
It ain't the truest form of living. You're just existing, and that's a sad existence for anybody. And these kids that are going through this journey of abuse and stress and heartache and pain and bringing up in these environments, we can, some people don't understand it because they've grown up and they've never had to be it or feel it or see it. Go and put yourself in an Aboriginal community out in the middle of nowhere and find out what I'm talking about. And you'll sit there and go, wow. And it's
Mm,
because of the structure. Imagine being lifted up, people say, why are they like that? I come into your house and I lift you up and I say, get out of your house today. And I sit in your house and you're like, oh, there's a bloke in your house. And I'm standing there with a knife or something, say, come back in this house and see what happens. The fear of, not fitting into where you felt safest. Now you've got to find your way on the streets, food, roof over your head, your kids are by your side. Like, and you've got no skills to deal with that. You're going to deal with it the best way you can. And I heard Arndo's story. His father, like Arndo the comedian, his father actually was so embarrassed that he came to Australia and tried to make it and didn't make it, that he left the family and he was drinking himself to death and found another woman. And it was only years later, Arn and his brother had always, my dad's nobody stuff him, and Arn ended up trying to kindle the relationship and then found out the story. And you go, wow, I
mm,
wish I'd sat down and listened to that story earlier. It gave me goosebumps, and it still gives
mm,
me goosebumps
mm,
because we don't seek to understand. And when we do, we go, wow, didn't understand the story until I actually sat down with that person. Do
mm,
that and sit down with a person. And even if that's trying to create a justice program, I'd even help you where we did it, where as community members, business owners, we'd sit with them. Because what we do, we sit in a community, and do you reckon the kids are there or the dysfunctional people in amongst those meetings?
yeah.
So what you got
Yeah.
is everyone going, burn them at the stake,
Mm,
yeah. And you're not going to get an outcome like that because the people that are actually trying to shift and change who have been abused through trauma and stress and heartache and pain are out there dealing with their pain. And you're talking about their pain. And then when they get locked up, yes, how good is that? And
mm,
now they're being abused while they're locked up. I think a lot of institutional abuse, whether it's how they're treated, how they're actually abused, sexually, physically, emotionally, physically. And then we'll sit there and say, scumbags. It's just crazy. It's
Mm.
a warped world we live in because we don't seek to understand. So get out and become a part of that conversation. You can contribute just as much as I am.
Absolutely. The words you're saying, you talk about emotional intelligence and you're talking about contribution and you're talking about all this sort of stuff, is a vast contrast to what you would be thinking at first in prison, because the stuff you're talking about is high level thinking. But in prison, it's survival. It's absolutely, how am I going to save my ass today, without me getting the shit beaten
Literally.
out of me or gang raped or God knows what. What was the catalyst to make you change? What actually happened that made you say, "Fuck this! I have to change," and how hard was it? Like, because you say 40, you're in for 20 years, so you're in for longer than you've been out. So to stop that habit, to stop that default, something big, something massive has to have kicked in to make that change. Like, what happened to you that was so profound that you shifted on a number of levels to become this person that you
Tell you
already
what it
were,
was.
but weren't
Yeah.
being it?
I, I, I always say the sum of all things has been the answer on most podcasts,
Yeah.
right? I educated myself. I did this, that, and the other. But what
Mm,
I really did was journal. And the journaling, and when I say this, I deep dive myself. And I started to ask questions around how I was built. And I went, Farah, you're so full of shit. You tell
mm,
everyone you're tough, you're crying in the cell. You tell everyone you're a money maker. How much money did you make in the last 7 years sentence? Zero. Um, like these dissonance between who I told myself I was and who I really was. You tell yourself you're a great human being, you can't even be there for your kids for 15 of those
mm,
years, literally
mm,
when they were born. These things, and I was sitting there going, like, do you feel good about that? And I was like, I feel shit, to be honest with you. So, and I'd cry, and and then walk out like, and once again, I pull in that bank robber mask. But I walk out into the yard and I walk out into society and they go, how you going, Morgs? Yeah, good, bro. Crushing life. But internally, I was feeling shit. No money in the bank. I had to go and rob people to get another bank, to get the money and, actually live. And I realized when I started to deal with society, how many people are a prisoner of their own mindset.
mm.
They want to write a book. They want to travel to this location.
Yeah.
They want to, but they haven't. And being a wanna, shoulda, coulda, woulda, my father said, don't be any of those, be a doer. I just realized I wasn't being a doer. Yes, I was doing things at a level, and could I can take that from that level and transition them over, destructive to constructive, negative to positive, bad to good? And I was like, you could do everything. It's all the same actions, but it just
Mm,
matters what environments you're doing them in. Do you want to do them
mm,
in Redfern, one of Australia's most notorious streets, and going to prisons? I was an E2 prisoner. The E2 prisoner, it means that you don't get out of maximum security. So I was at all these maximum security prisons across the country, including different states. And I was telling myself how good's life. I'm so well known. And you got to understand when you're well known, it's like being a movie star in jail without, like, you don't get the perks, obviously, as they did.
mm,
And I started asking myself, could you do that outside and do it around something you love doing? And I was like, well, I love training. I love being keeping fit and healthy. Let's be a trainer. Qualified nutritionist, study a bachelor's degree in jail. And then I come out and I start to do that. 216, 218, my brother and sister died by suicide.
Oh
And
God.
by this time, I'm talking at a lot of schools, universities, Filex, which is the fitness industry, conversations and across the globe about nutrition and training, education systems for trainers. I was very innovative in that industry. 216, brother commits suicide, so I start to sort of do the talks and training. 218, sister checks out, and I'm like, that's it. I'm checking out of this industry and I'm going into this industry. And then I realized when I was training people, it wasn't just training and nutrition, how they were built, what they were thinking, where they were brought up, what are their environments, who are you around, what are you telling yourself, the dissonance between perception and reality. And then I just started to transition, and looking back on it now, the biggest thing for me was a deep dive. And when I
Mm,
did that, I was like, fuck, you're so full of shit, Jeff, on yourself. And you're
mm,
just, you're a good father. What, buying your kids stuff from the bank robberies, like holidays or every toy they wanted. Who gives a shit? Your kid wants you there, right there,
mm,
and
mm,
you're not there for 15 years. To this day, my life is bliss, financially, emotionally, spiritually, culturally, in that sense. But when it comes to my kids, I've broken that relationship. So my son doesn't talk to me out of what's happened. My daughter's on and off through, I'm trying to teach her values of life. She doesn't understand that. So she thinks I'm a prick, and therefore she'll not talk to me, not talk to me, not talk. So, yeah, to me, it's just, that in itself, I deep dived and said, what about your kids?
yeah,
You talk about being staunch and loyal to your crew.
yeah.
And I just, that dissonance, what you told yourself and what you've built yourself to believe, staunch and loyal. What about your kids? You're
Mm,
staunch and loyal to your crew. You won't dob them in, but well, I'm pretty much dobbing my kids in, if that makes sense, where I
mm,
just here, throw you to the curb. I don't care about yourself. Well, that broke my heart. And I was like,
mm,
and that was the biggest thing. If people deep dive themselves, they don't like, no one wants to do that. Who wants to say, my name's Jeffrey Morgan. I cheated on my partner. I was locked up for 15 years, didn't show up to my kids. I did that. And when I did that, I let go of the heaviness. And I
mm,
went, you know what? I'm not proud of that person and I can't change that person then, but I am committed to changing that person from this line right here.
mm,
And from that day onwards, and when I started, people go, "Oh, he'll cheat on his partner. He'll rob another bank. He'll, go back to crime." And 14 years later, heading towards 15 years, we've just kept going because I just drew a line in the sand and said, "Never again."
mm,
And people judge, and even now, people that don't have access to the new version, they'll talk about the version that they had access to, which was chapter whatever it was, chapter five, and now I'm at chapter 55.
yeah.
I'm just a different beast. And, each to their own. It's a free world and they're able to do that, but it's not my business. My business is the internal of me, and anything external and what someone's opinion of me isn't my business. What they say about me isn't my business. The awareness of myself is my business. And that's what
Mm,
I tell everyone. Deep dive yourself, shift yourself, and become aware of who you are and what you want from this life.
mm. Do you have
Yeah.
do you have regrets that because your mum, I know your dad's died. Has your mum passed as well?
Mum and dad died whilst I was in custody. I went to both funerals in handcuffs, thinking I was a big, tough man.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, in regards to regrets, I want people to understand this. And people will say, bullshit, mate. Would I like to hurt people? No. Do I regret what happened? I can't regret an uneducated kid who thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so if someone does something wrong that they're uneducated for, how can you be regretful for what I was such a young kid in survival mode that by the time it was a habit, I just thought that was normal behavior. I'd like, why do these idiots go and work for $800 a week back then, or
Mm,
1500 was great back then. I'll make, 300,000 in one hit. See you later. Good luck to you. What
mm,
idiots. And that's because I was uneducated. Like to understand when you get locked up, you're exchanging time for money. I always say to business owners now, a smaller business, make sure you're working on the business, not in the business. Otherwise, you're exchanging time for money that could be spent with family. So I didn't have that awareness then. So
mm,
I'm uneducated. And I don't mean that nicely. And uneducated, like I was so fearful. So my first response is violence. You
yeah.
come in my way. I'm uneducated because I don't know how to deal with my frustrations or how to, hey, you're in my space. I'm going to show you who's boss here. Um, and that's not how I did it, but you
Mm,
sort of get the gist, right? And I mean that nicely. Do I regret that people were hurt? Like, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because would I want my grandmother or mother to be hurt? No, but I can't regret what I didn't know. And that
Mm,
means that and people say, bullshit, mate, you had to know it was wrong robbing banks. We grew up in an area where survival was, you just survived, man. And you honestly get caught up in it. You don't have time to think like yourself. I don't
mm,
have time to train.
Mm,
I don't have time to think to learn a new way of making money. And making money for me meant that I snatched money off bank counters. I jumped bank counters. I took money from the vault. I didn't think about what I was leaving behind. I was just thinking I'm taking the money. And even then, the police respected us at the level we did it at because I didn't want to hurt the people in the bank. I
mm,
just wanted to take the money so that we could survive.
mm.
And like I was a different type of person. I didn't run in there and hurt people and want to hurt people.
Yeah.
But if you stepped in my space, I was violent to make sure. And it was a fear from a young kid that
Mm,
was coming out, you know. So I regret that people were hurt, but I don't regret. I can't regret what I didn't know. You know,
yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
saying to somebody, you know, that, and even with domestic violence in this current situation, I'll talk about this really quickly. Men in situations don't have emotional intelligence, which means that when they bottleneck their volcano feelings and they can't talk about it effectively. They can't talk to someone because they don't trust them.
Yeah.
I talk to you and say, hey, I'm having some stress. And you go and say, hey, Julie, do you know what happened with Jeff? Mary, you know what happened?
Yeah.
John, you know, then we
Yeah.
go and talk about everybody
Yeah.
gossip.
Yeah.
Now I don't trust you anymore. So
Mm,
we've got to a society where we don't trust each other
yeah.
at all. Like, and I'd say to people, start to trust people, start to educate each other how to respond in situations. Maybe you're better at emotional intelligence than I am. Maybe someone's better at business than I am. Let's learn from each other and then
Mm,
grow
yeah.
into this
Yeah.
beast so that when the choice comes to be made, now you know, someone says to me, you know, you black so and so. I don't have to say, come over here, mate, let's have a
Mm,
fight about it. And just say, what makes you feel that you have to respond in that? Who taught you that? And once we get to that understanding and level, we're able to show people a different response. And what we'll get is a different response
mm,
because we only respond from what we know. And our first response growing up in Redfern was fear.
mm,
Fear of the police.
yeah.
Imagine being fearful of police that are supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
So who am I going to go to if I got abused? You
Yeah.
reckon I'm going to go to the police? I'm fearful of them. So understanding that on a level, and then that turned into, you know, the police against us and Redfern against everybody else and
Mm,
Aboriginal people against everybody else too. So I've got to a point where even now I say to Aboriginal people, why is it that we, you know, and I teach them awareness. Talk about they took our land, right? And I'm not getting into all that. And I say that the best way to deal with the evolution is merge together and unite
yeah.
and be as nice to one another with love, kindness, empathy, and respect, and we can all get on. But understand one another's being,
Journey.
which
Yeah.
is our culture, your being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you understand that, then you can respond from a different space. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight somebody over someone calling me baldy, black. Maybe then my partner's ass is great as they will. I'll be like, hey, mate, come on, man. Be a bit respectful. And he goes, what are you going to do about it? I don't have to do something about it. I just know that that person's built from, like I was, from a, you know, if we had a scaling rate, probably at a 2, and I mean that nicely to the individual without judging them. Do I need to have that conversation with a brick wall? They're not going
Yeah.
to understand it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me as a kid. So I didn't understand it. You were talking to a brick wall that was just in survival mode. I'm running from the line, the plane's about to crash, and you're asking me to act normal.
Yeah.
The plane's crashing. Oh, don't stress. You know, it was a great
Yeah.
life and how good is bullshit. You'd be screaming your ass off,
Yeah.
you know, and now, oh, but tell me your goals. You know, you should be grateful that we get an opportunity to crash like nobody else. Bullshit. It
Mm,
makes sense. So
yeah.
how can we really connect with ourselves? How can we seek to understand? How can we start to be a better person and human? And there's a word called Mellorism. Everybody look that up and you understand what I'm talking about.
Valorism.
It's we can just be a better world, and we should be a better world. And once we start to get out of judgment and into solutions, we have a yarning circle in Aboriginal communities. Do you know what that's for? That means that there's no king or queen, there's no boss, there's no leader. We are all contributing to this
Mm,
space. It's funny that the yarning circle is the same shape as the world. Let's do that as a world and watch the world be a better place. So I actually get goosebumps from that.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Jeff, I've loved this conversation. I know you've got to go. You've got a client coming in, and you're not going to
So
let
coming soon.
and you're not going to let anyone down, which I absolutely love. I love your discipline. Love all that. Jeff, where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to check out your work and all that sort of stuff?
jeffreymorgan.com.au, Jeffrey, not Jefffery, Rey there. They go out and have that conversation. If I'm the person you align with, by all means, we work with the Department of Defence, NRL, corporates, communities, health services, national framework, globally, domestically. So no, the old version doesn't exist anymore, other than if I had to because someone was attacking me, or somebody else in our community. And even then, I'd have that conversation with that person. And people would say, "There's no way you do that." I'd actually already thought about it, and I'd say, "How'd you get to this spot, buddy? If they've got a gun, that's a different story.
Yep.
I'm running it, I'm hauling ass, and I'm tipping that you should all haul ass as well." Because yeah, I ain't sticking around with someone and trying to work out a situation with a gun. But in general, unless I knew the person, but in general, reach out, have that conversation with me if I'm your person. We've got the online space, we've got corporate programs there, long-term business mindset, leadership, and well-being programs for corporations, and they can be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year contracts. Get in contact. Hey, we have a 3 day trial on the individual
Yep.
online journey, so don't be afraid to check that out, and if it's not for you, that's great. But
Yep.
we put this content in that space every single day, and it could be emotional intelligence, personal development, business development, stress and time management, burnout, quality of life, those sorts of things that allow you to perform at your best. And that means the words that you speak to yourself, the people you're around, the environments you're in, and most importantly, how you tap into yourself and get the most out of yourself.
Yeah, well, absolutely love that. Well, I can see that you're absolutely a plethora of gold nuggets. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck with your clients. But thank you so much. I hope 2025 is bloody successful for you and
Appreciate
brings you all the joy you deserve. So, thank you. I
straight
really.
back at you, and wish, for anyone that's not subscribed from my crew, get across, get off the bench, check out this podcast, and do yourselves a favor, stay tuned because part two will come soon.
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. Thanks, heap, Jeff. Have a lovely
Enjoy it.
day. See ya. Ta-da.
Take care.
Okay, bye bye. See ya.
Bye.